Hi, very good morning to you. It's Jim from Avstar Observatory. I wanted to talk a little bit more about what's going on in the east with Kazakhstan, and I will explain why this is probably not too far away from what we're all going to be seeing very shortly. Now, I just want to say this is not just related to Kazakhstan. We're seeing this all over Europe, but not at that level. I think could be the start of more things to come. Right now, far as I believe, is the last thing I heard with regards to what's going on is apart from a police officer having his head chopped off, and I think there's about 20 police officers that have been killed, about 30 protesters that have been killed. It's got out of control. The situation is to the point where, the president of Kazakhstan's had to call in on its neighbouring countries for some form of security to try and resolve the situation, which is vastly getting out of control. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about that and just put it into context as to how this is going to affect us and probably why all this is happening in the beginning in any case. So before I do, I just want to say a big thanks to a couple of people, mainly Philip Gravelli. I hope I haven't made a complete hash of your surname, but I wanted to say this. What you did yesterday for the observatory was pretty much give us a life vest, because we were rapidly going underwater. I tell you, I'm not rich, and I just can't understand this. I explain this to people every day. My situation is right now I'm having to walk 5 miles to the shop just to get a few essentials, and I'm pretty much in the same boat as most people are in the UK, and we're all feeling the pinch, and it's not comfortable. No one likes it, but I can't put my car on the road, or I won't risk driving it, because as is what has just happened to a friend of mine the other day. He was stopped because he had no road tax on the vehicle, and they took the vehicle off him and crushed it. So there's no way I'm going to risk that. I'll just hold out until we can afford to put the road tax on it. It's got to be MOT'd as well, and then it doesn't rain, but when it pours, does it? We've got to find the insurance for it. So we're doing. That's the situation here. We can turn our pockets out and fluff off all out. So if there is any more superstars like Philip Gravelli that want to help out, there's a link in the description. Okay, let's get on with what we're really here to discuss, and that is the situation that erupted in Kazakhstan. And it started with the president of the country making a promise to its people that it wouldn't put fuel prices up, and we're talking mainly about liquid gas petroleum, or LPG. And he put the prices up at a time where it's crippling people already. This is a situation that we all completely understand around the world. Our governments are simply not listening and not rescuing us at a time of crisis. And I'm going to tell you why this is going to come round to all the countries. Now, we've seen it in a lot of European countries, mainly over COVID rules, but like everywhere else around the world, fuel prices and the cost of food, like this demonstrator is pointing out, have rocketed. And yes, Kazakhstan is probably a very, very wealthy, oil-rich country. What's going on? Obviously, where is the money going off the nation's assets? It's going in just a few people's pockets. We're seeing this everywhere. We're seeing no longer people wanting to, these rich elite, greedy pigs at the trough, no longer wanting to just be millionaires. There's a race for them now to become trillionaires. What is wrong with these people? £1 trillion or $1 trillion is an incredible amount of money and could help out tens of thousands of people, and it is now sitting in just a few people's pockets, or banks, should we say. Was supposed to be a capital system which has gone stagnant years and years ago and just not been upgraded. And of course, no one at the top, or these elites at least, want that to happen. We're just getting sick and tired of being squashed and pushed down into the dirt. And when that happens, protesters are going to come out like what's happened in Kazakhstan and other European countries, and they're going to take to the streets. Now, the flashpoint, what happened is the police started opening fire on these protesters. So, even though they had a right to protest, they probably believe they live in a reasonably democratic system or society, and you shouldn't be shot at by your police forces. We're seeing this brutality in the UK, where people take to the streets to protest peacefully, and as a result of doing that, you get police rushing in with batons, tear gas, water cannons, and of course, if you're going to start injuring, peaceful protesters, then there is going to be some retaliation, and that is exactly what happened, and that is what's led to around 20 police officers in Kazakhstan being killed, one of them having his head chopped off, and the situation still has not been resolved. We're going to see more of this, because it's not just in Kazakhstan where people are made promises by their elected governments that are supposed to work in the benefit for the people. We're going to see this in our countries because our elected officials do the exact same. Boris Johnson, you sold the UK citizens out to energy companies, and you're not listening to any of the real scientists out there when we tell you stop banging on about CO2 and climate change, because the world can't afford this climate change as you're portraying it to be. All the statistics, all the records, all the facts point to something completely opposite to what you're saying. And when you ignore your citizens and you abuse them, then don't be surprised with what you see happening in Kazakhstan, happening in the United Kingdom. You probably think that is never going to be the case, but I'm pretty sure that the Kazakhstan Prime Minister thought the same. What he's done in this situation, before he called for the assistance of other neighbouring countries, and Russia is sending in a peacekeeping force, so they say, what he's done is ordered the police officers to shoot on sight people that aren't behaving themselves. Now, that could be at the discretion of the police officer, couldn't it? Which means we're going to see a lot more people be shot and killed, a lot more people, wrongly arrested, in my opinion, and we're going to see more of it in the coming days as this outplays. But what the president said was that these were European terrorists. This was a group of people that were very well trained, and he's blaming it on terrorism. It's clear to the world that these are your people. They're not trained terrorists. They're people which are complaining about you breaking your promise to them. You said you wouldn't put the fuel rates up. You put them up, and the people took to the streets. This isn't an organised terrorist group. These are protesters. They're not even domestic terrorists. Let's get it right, because this is what's happening all around the world, isn't it? If you protest, you become, or you get called by your president or your prime minister or your elected leader as a domestic terrorist. Get effing real. These people are people that are sick and tired of scratching round for a little bit of gas, a little bit of energy to heat their homes, and a bit of food. Now, the real reason why all this is happening is because of great climatic changes taking place with our Earth. These people are complaining about not having enough energy and enough fuel. Well, the energy is there, the resources are there, and they're there for everybody. It's just that they are rich corporations, elitists, that are lobbying governments in order to keep prices high and rip off the general public. Well, there is obviously, as we see in Kazakhstan, a limit to people's patience. And when you have got no food and you can't put the heating on, then that leaves you in a very desperate situation, probably near death situation. What do you think people are going to do? Guys, let me tell you something. It's not just Kazakhstan. You know that. Everywhere around the world is facing the same situation with regards to the increases in energy. We're being told it's because they're having to invest in renewable energy because of CO2 and carbon in the atmosphere, which we know is a lie. So they're using this as a justification to put the prices up and make themselves trillionaires. The food crisis is largely due to a lot of arable land going offline, and climatic changes, making it less favourable for good yields of crops to come out of the ground. And that is to do with the nature of what is taking place with our world. We are going through, some very big changes. Someone said to me, when is the grand solar minimum going to start? Well, I don't know whether he's new to the channel, but it's already started. We haven't reached equilibrium yet, so this is going to continue a trend that we're following for the last 33 years, and we're seeing that it's getting nowhere near the equilibrium point where things start to increase in numbers. We're seeing some pretty strange activity with regards to where the sunspots are forming on the disk on the sun. There is no signs of us reaching equilibrium yet, and as a result of that low solar output, the heliosphere has shrunk, and it is allowing more cosmic rays into our solar system. And on top of that, we are going through a magnetic pole reversal. So our primary defense against cosmic rays, which are on the increase because of the shrunken heliosphere, we are having a weakened magnetosphere. So more and more, probably compounded radiation is in our upper atmosphere, and that is changing the weather patterns of the jet streams. That's why we're getting intermixing over the northern and southern hemispheres of our planet with the polar and subtropical jet streams. That's why we get flash floods. That's why we get droughts. That's why we get, record-breaking snow levels. It's not when is it going to start. It's already started. And, that's why when we see hurricanes destroy thousands of homes in Kentucky, we know it's already there. We know it's here right now. It was here 10 years ago. It's just that most people don't realise it because it hasn't knocked directly on their front door, and the tornado has not blew their house away, or the floods have not washed their house away, or they've not been able to get work because there is no well-paid jobs out there. How many people can work for McDonald's? We're living here in the UK where people in poverty are being pushed further and further into poverty. My energy bills, I worked it out the other day, if I continue spending what I am on gas and electric, just those two things, it's £2,060 a year. £2,060 a year just on putting electric in the house and gas in the house to heat it. Then you've got the hiked fuel bills, not just food bills. You've got the fuel that you put in your car has gone through the roof. I mean, Americans would cry literally if they had to pay what the people over here in the UK are paying for their fuel. Is it now? Was it £1.44 a litre for unleaded? Something like that. Probably a little bit more. But you work out how much it costs to fill your car. I mean, everyone I know around me is saying when we go to the fuel garage and we put £30 in there, it doesn't take you up over half a tank. So, Americans at the moment, I know that they like their cheap fuel, but you wouldn't want to pay the prices over here for it. And like I say, with wages not going up and increasing, then, how do we meet the cost of living? We just keep cutting back things, cut Netflix this week, cut the TV out the week after, don't bother switching your gas on, put some extra jumpers on, sit in your house freezing cold, and then, when you're hungry, you're frightened to cook things for too long because you don't want to use up all your gas or your electric. And, what are they doing? We can't even have stoves in our houses no more to heat our houses because they put a ban this year on the sales of wood and coal because they will put shit into the atmosphere, carbon. It's a load of lies. The carbon in the atmosphere, even if it is at over 400 parts per million, will come down as soon as the planet goes through its natural phase of going through a glacial period. We're probably 6,000 years into that cycle already, the melancholy cycle, by the way. This isn't something that we've just begun to go into. No, we're at the end of an interglacial period. We're going back into a glacial period. And that means more of that cropland that we've got and enjoyed over the last 60, 70 years is going to go offline. that means food prices, like any commodity, when they're in short demand or short supply, the prices are very high. It's no different to any other commodity in the world. And we ain't working together with each other because we've got territories, borders. People can't migrate like the rest of the animals on this earth. The rest of the species on this earth can migrate wherever they need to. It's only stupid human beings that put up borders and stop movement of people. I can only dream about, what could be seen in the future when we emerge further into this glacial period and things really start to shut down over the northern hemisphere of this earth and the southern hemisphere. Don't think that just because you live over the southern hemisphere, it doesn't affect you. It does, and it will. And it will affect people even on the equatorial region, because as we go out further into that elliptical orbit, what happens? We get further away from the sun that is already in a low solar production of activity. So less solar activity, weakened heliosphere, weakened magnetosphere, more cosmic rays, more climate alterations, and less food being produced as a result, at a time where stupid governments are pissing about with windmills and solar panels. I want to do a video because I understand what people would love to see. They would love to see us come out with a device that we could power our own homes free. But sad thing is, I've been trying to look at all these things for a good 25 years and it just simply isn't available. If it was, it would be something that nobody in any organisation could ever keep quiet. A lot of people that claim 0 point just don't understand what they're doing. Don't understand what they're doing. Well, that's a debate for another day. And I think the world's in a right mess as it is, without making more people even more depressed about something that they can't obtain at this point. Regardless, what, guys, I know what you think. Nikola Tesla said there was a way of doing it. Well, why aren't we doing it today? You think it's because there aren't enough back garden engineers that couldn't pull it off what Nikola Tesla done so many years ago? They could. We'll talk about this probably tomorrow if you want. But guys, seriously, what we are witnessing in Kazakhstan is something probably which we are going to start seeing over here in the West and other parts of the world. I heard that there are at the moment 3 million Americans ready to take up arms against the government because they feel that the government is tyrannical. And according to their forefathers' constitution, was it? They were allowed to keep themselves well equipped and fight a tyrannical government if ever they found themselves in one legally. I can't remember where I got that information from, but apparently there is 3 million American people prepared to take up arms against the government because they feel it's tyrannical. And that's why I say, when we're looking at what's going on in Kazakhstan, it might not be far from taking place in one of the Western countries, because we're certainly seeing unrest around Europe, even though a lot of it is to do with COVID. I mean, Macron is a complete and utter idiot with what he's just done. He's up for election in April, and he's just pissed off 5 million people by saying, I'm going to continue pissing them off until they have no choice but to get vaccinated. He's just told everyone in France that he does not support democracy and freedom of will. You can't have a leader talk like that in any country. I will be surprised if he gets re-elected in April. I think what he's just done was the biggest mistake of his career. But there you go. Guys, there's a link down there if you want to help support us and throw us a lifeline here at the Mathstar Observatory. And we'll be back discuss a few things. Maybe we'll talk about that energy, what some of the biggest problems are about trying to create 0 point energy, and we'll have a laugh at some of the big organisations that have invested hundreds of thousands in fusion technology, because it's never, ever, ever going to work. Guys, link down there if you want to help support us, and I'll say what I usually do. Take care of your loved ones, as always. Bye for now.